Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Liberal White Dudes. I am Andrew.
I'm Jared.
I am AJ.
And we are Liberal White Dudes. Tonight's episode is called Incrementalism, which is kind of a lot. That's a spelling bee word. But first, before we get to that, let's chat a little bit about the most recent news. Of course, the impeachment trial in the Senate started today for Donald J. Trump.
Former president
of the
Twice
United
impeached.
States. Twice impeached.
Yes, former president, twice impeached, disgraced.
Can we give them adjectives?
That's how I refer to that.
Let people know how we feel about it. But
Saggy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're just
45th
Yes.
saggy
Saggy.
president of the United
saggy,
States.
if we're just picking, we're just picking adjectives. I mean, out of a hat. Why not?
Doesn't
It
know
is
how
now,
to
no matter
dance.
what-
Doesn't know how to stand. President of the
No
United
matter-
States.
No matter how many adjectives we interchange out of that, saggy has to always be in it. No matter what, he was saggy.
Not sure if any of our viewership had the opportunity to watch any of the lawyers for him today, but
Ay caramba.
geez Louise. Man, no,
Yeah.
they haven't had a lot of time to prep because they wanted a speedy trial, and of course nobody would take the case, and he's swapped out lawyers now, I don't know, half a dozen times probably. But man, were they fumbling through. Just
Yeah.
not.
Go
ahead.
I saw the Daily Show posted the really funny thing. They were just like, it's like, Trump, get me the brightest legal mind we can find. And it was like, this guy shows up. And it's just like Bruce Castor, obviously, just being Bruce Castor, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, they did not. They got a lot of criticism. I mean, of course, they got criticism from Democrats. They got a lot of criticism from Republicans, being like, "Geez, like, what are we even doing here?" I want to be able to just straight line vote for this, which they still did. I mean, they had a vote at the end there where it's like, are we moving forward with this? And of course, all the Democrats said yes, and picked up another Republican. So 6 Republicans said yes. Let's move
on the
forward.
way.
But man, I mean, he said things like, the Constitution is full of words.
Which it is.
Just
To his
give
credit.
Again, not off base.
Yeah.
Every time I've looked at the Constitution, that is what I have observed. There's
The
words there.
The words
Yep.
that are on it. It's made of paper, parchment of some
Strictly
kind.
academic sense.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
it
it starts with
physically
words,
is.
it ends
Yeah.
with words. There's words throughout the
Words in
document.
it. Yeah.
You
Words
could
throughout
say
the
it makes up the entirety of it.
Yeah.
Words. Yeah, I get that. Okay.
And
So there's that.
making a lot of arguments that it doesn't make any sense to go forward with this because he's not the president any longer, which is such a disingenuous argument when
It's to stop him from being the president again.
I
That's
mean,
what it is
among
for.
other things,
Among other things. But
so we'll see that move forward. They say they don't have the votes to convict in the Senate. I think they're right about that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I believe so.
I want them to call witnesses. I want them to walk us through everything leading up to one of the craziest things that's happened in my lifetime.
It just seems like one of those things because there's so many people. Yeah, there's so many people that don't believe what happened is really what it is. Because of the amount, just the percentage of the American population that doesn't believe it. It seems really important to call witnesses and just run the line on it. Because if not to actually convict him, just to inform people about what happened at a bare minimum.
Yeah, go through the detail of what having a fascist leader inciting riots means.
Yeah, exactly.
Just for posterity's sake, if nothing else, walk us through what's going on.
Yeah, I find the most disturbing aspect of this is definitely just how transparent it is that this is a Republican president that we're doing this to. Because, again, the argument that he's no longer president, it's like, do you really think that would be what they would let us stand on if it was a Democratic president that we were breaking? I mean, it's just, it's so ridiculous that it's like obvious that I just never thought the GOP would stoop so low as to try and sweep insurrection under the rug. There's a lot of things I could see them trying to sweep under the rug for Trump, sweep under the rug for essentially any, Republican president or Republican leader, but insurrection would not have been on my bingo board for things they were just going to try to quietly sweep under the rug and move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a month since an angry mob broke into the Capitol. Like, how is it that we're not over this? It's been a month.
Yeah.
Come on, people. Like, how long do people have to be traitors when they've violently insurrected against their government? Oh, are they still seditionists after a month? Come on.
Yeah.
Enough time passes. That washes out.
Yeah.
All right. How long are we going to talk about the president inciting violence on the Capitol? Like, how long are we going to hash this out, guys?
Yeah.
Like, really?
We get it.
We get it. The president incited violence. Can we move on?
Boring.
Yeah. Unity.
I do.
That's old stuff, man. What do we want to do today? It's Wednesday.
Like when they asked Biden, if he's watching the trial, he's like, I got shit to do. Like, I'm not sitting around
I'm
watching
the president.
television. I'm like an actual president who's got, COVID to deal with and financial crisis to deal with and all these kind of things. Might I also mention that we don't have checks yet. I mean, we're 3 weeks in now to the Biden presidency. 3 weeks tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah.
Relief package still sitting on somebody's desk somewhere, right?
Well, and that's the thing I really hate is that there's, I see a lot of Twitter activity from Republican representatives saying like, well, we got bigger things to worry about right now. Now, all of a sudden, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Now, all of a sudden, the American people desperately need help. Now, all of a sudden, they really want Congress and the president to get to work. Now, they weren't as interested about what the president or Congress was doing, say, the last 12 months. But recently, they seem to be really interested in how they're spending their time.
Or even since the election. There's been no president. There's been, no movement on anything of value. Just a bunch of arguing about whether or not he lost, even though everybody knows he lost.
Yeah. Like, I agree Congress needs to get to those items, but it's just like, we're not going to table impeaching Trump for convicting Donald Trump for inciting insurrection. We're not going to just like table that for later. Okay. That needs to be addressed. I'm sorry. Like, I get it, but that needs to be addressed. It just bothers me that it's just like now all of a sudden you want to whine and cry because it's like, you really don't want this impeachment to go forward. And it's like, well, I mean, you guys weren't complaining, like you said, in December when Trump was completely absent and nothing was being done for anyone.
Golfing and basically ignoring his job. It's like senioritis. It was like the worst case of senioritis I've ever seen. It's like I've already got my grades. Like, what? I wasn't doing this to do the job, so I don't care about my country. I don't care who's in pain. I don't care who's dying every day. Do you say 3,000, 4,000? What's the difference? Anyway, that guy sucks. So we're gonna hear a lot more about him.
He still sucks. He still sucks.
Coming days, I'm gonna be glued to it. Probably live tweet some of the more fun bits. Because these lawyers will definitely... Which
we have been doing. The white dudes have been doing all day today.
Their fun bits. All right.
I would like to say, for the record, I don't want to see any of their fun bits. But the fun bits of this trial, yes.
Keep that off the news and off Twitter.
That's just a joke.
I was on Bruce Cantor's OnlyFans after, just to...
See his fun bits,
it's weird. He's mostly just asking for advice.
Yeah. Somebody tell me what this means legally.
He's on his OnlyFans looking for legal advice.
OnlyFans is a lot of one-on-ones, but mostly he just asks you a lot of questions that you don't know the answer to. You think he would.
Yeah.
So how do you pronounce this word? I'm not entirely sure. It's got a lot of syllables. I'm trying to...
How do you lawyer exactly?
Yeah, what does that mean?
I've gotten myself into something here. Tonight's episode is entitled Incrementalism. Jared, why don't you start us off?
Ooh, starting us off. All right. So incrementalism, for those that don't know, is the process of getting things done piece by piece, basically, in a governmental sense. So the reason that I asked about this as a topic, or we're talking about it, is because there's a lot of people that feel like it's harm reduction, right? The term harm reduction is apparently also a bad thing in this take, because what you're doing is just prolonging misery. You're harm reducing, but you're not fixing the problem, right? So for example, like the $15 minimum wage, which we talked about, is a poor example of incrementalism, because it's not a very quick, like it's not a very but it is an incremental change, right? And those things are going to happen in order for the bigger changes to come over time. And basically the take is that if you're doing that, that's bad. And even to the extent that like you shouldn't be voting if you're like, because there are people that think like this for socialists specifically, right, that you shouldn't be voting because you're taking part in a system that supports capitalism, and therefore it's like burning your bust. Basically the burning your bust mindset is kind of anti-incrementalism, and I don't agree with that take. It's kind of where that starts for me.
Huge change is hard, and we do not, I mean, even though we do have majorities in the House, the Senate, and also the presidency, we don't have the votes to break a filibuster. We don't have, we still have the filibuster. That's still a thing. The minority party in the Senate can still hold the Senate hostage on any given issue. So huge change is going to happen. We're going to have to fight hard for incremental change at this point.
I don't think there's a lot of value in thumbing your nose at compromise, I guess, when it comes to these types of things. And usually I feel like that take lines up a lot with just the absolute refusal to try and compromise. And a lot of it is fueled by past anger, that's built up for the system against, and so there just is kind of a sense of justice, and that it's not fair and we shouldn't have to compromise. We shouldn't have to try and reach across the aisle. This doesn't have to be bipartisan. Why do we give a shit about their feelings? It's like,
I feel that way.
There's bits, I was going to say, there's pieces of that I 100% agree with, but at the same time, you're not going to, it's like you said, Andrew, you're not going to make these massive changes, these kinds of overhauls we're talking about, without compromise. It doesn't happen in a democratic society. So it's one of those things I like to say, like, SGNT. Sounds good, not true. It sounds good to thumb your nose at that kind of compromise, but it just isn't a reality that we can stand on. And I think if you're the type of person that sits on that side of it, nothing's ever actually going to get done.
Yeah. And I think too about harm reduction as a term, it's like everything we do to progress society is harm reduction. That's the reason we're doing it, is to reduce harm. So whether or not we're reducing small amounts of harm over a long period of time, which is the most politically effective way.
Liberals or Democrats.
Right? Yes, that's everything. Yeah, left of the spectrum, of course. Yeah, because that's not always the conservative line, but that's what the social progress is for, is to reduce harm now. And the thing is that you can't really do big sweeping one motion save everyone stuff. It's just not possible. If we were to, like, today raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, just today, like right now, there would be a huge crisis.
Yeah, I mean, and to argue the other side of that, that's what they're always saying, is they're saying, if you say that, you can't. It's like we're not thinking big enough. We're not doing big enough. Even saying that you can't do something big means that you can't. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think Trump ran on harm amplification.
Yes, he most certainly did.
Correctly what his platform was.
Maximizing harm.
Yeah. I mean,
do the most harm.
Yeah. Do unto others as you feel like doing unto others. That's like isn't that the phrase? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. The silver rule.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, we have we continue to be stuck behind the Republican Senate. It still feels like a Republican Senate, even though we have 51 votes versus 50. We just can't seem to get Mitch McConnell out of a power position. And until we do, there's no way forward for things that matter. legislatively we just end up running, you go to them for compromise, and as we've mentioned previously on this program, we're reading a Promised Land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A Promised Land, yeah.
Which eventually will finish.
Yeah, at some point.
He talks about the healthcare bill and how he sits down with Chuck Grassley, and he's like, they've made a bunch of sweeping changes, and they're like, how about this? And he comes back with more changes, and like, okay, we've made those changes. How about this? And then he comes back with more changes, and he's like, okay, so right now, if I commit to making all of these changes and I give it back to you, you'll be okay with it? Yes or no? And it's like, is there any point where you're going to be okay with this? And he's like, I guess not.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, what is the point? What is the point of the bipartisanship? What is the point of sitting down and talking these things out when there is no end result where the thing passes?
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the conundrum. I mean, where, that's where we're at, unfortunately, is that you can't have it either way, really. But like you said, I find it surprising that here we are, February 9th, and with 51 votes, and still, like you said, finding it hard to, get any kind of traction or,
yeah, I mean,
take any steps forward.
The relief bill should already be passed. We have the House, we have the Senate, we have the presidency.
Yeah, that should have been day one stuff. I mean, he was inaugurated on the 20th. I'm like, okay, so by the 26th?
Yeah, they're still fiddling over a bunch of things, and what the cutoff's going to be for income, and they want to lower that to $50,000 or whatever, and then they want to change the amount of the check, and then they want to and all. Because
again,
meanwhile, it has been
that
the people who aren't supposed to get help don't get it, right?
Yeah. In case someone accidentally who doesn't need quite as much help as we're saying they do accidentally gets a few $100s more than they should. We can't have that.
And that's the thing too. It's the thing that the Bernie. This is, I mean, almost in line with the Bernie or bust argument, right? In some ways, is that we expected this of Biden, to be honest, right? This was part of at least from a leftist's perspective. Sorry, maybe not everybody felt this way, but this was my anticipation. My anticipation going in was that a Biden presidency would basically mean that we're doing kind of the same stuff, except for we're making some socially progressive decisions, and we're undoing some of the stuff that Trump did, which is good. I agree. Like, those are all good things, but it does make it, and it does almost provide a little bit of credence to the Bernie or bust argument, except for the fact that you have to vote still. Voting for a Biden presidency versus not voting at all means that either you get a Biden presidency or a Trump one.
Yeah.
Right. The people that were willing to throw out their vote just because Bernie wasn't the candidate, it's like, what is your plan? What is your how do we move forward? Because if what you're doing right now is being passive in Trump's election, which is horrendous, and I think it makes you just as culpable to his election as anyone who voted for him in some ways,
Yeah. I mean, there's been speculation that that's how he won in the first place, right? A certain amount of the left did not show up.
Just didn't show up.
Because Hillary Clinton was not their favorite candidate. I think enough people showed up, even though Biden wasn't their favorite candidate. I have yet to hear from anyone who Biden was in fact their favorite candidate.
Exactly.
It's weird that he's president, but that happened like the middle child too. Trump wasn't anybody's favorite candidate until he was elected.
I mean, you can look back at several interviews. I always think back to the Lindsey Graham Daily Show interview. One of the famous times where Lindsey Graham just kind of shared how he really felt about Trump. Of course, all prior to Trump being in power and Trump being a meal ticket or being a, gateway to power or whatever they see him as, whatever tool they see him as to them and their careers.
I see him as a tool.
He is a tool,
I see him as a massive
certainly.
tool. Yeah. But yeah, I know we've all said on the show, obviously Biden wasn't our first choice, and certainly relative to the last administration, it's, 150% better. And he signed more executive orders than any president in office, I think, ever has in his first few weeks. So, I mean, certainly he's moving forward at a faster pace than I guess I anticipated, considering he's an old guy. But he's an old fella. But he's trying to get a lot done. Like I said, I really like his response to them asking, like, "Oh, have you been following the trial. It's like,
TV.
no,
no. I got president stuff to do.
I'll get the Cliff's notes of that after it finishes up.
At
some point, because I got other stuff to focus on.
I don't know if you've ever been the president, and I know we saw the last president do a lot of not presidenting, but generally when you're the president, yeah, generally when you are the president, there's like a lot of stuff to do.
A lot of presidenting going on.
Trump had a lot of free time, but the truth is he really didn't. That's the problem.
Yeah,
and that's the problem with his whole administration.
He took a lot of personal time, but
Well, I think incrementalism, at least, is still something. I mean, I feel like,
right, and that's kind of the point.
Movement.
That's kind of the point too. Is that people say that movement isn't substantial enough, and I agree in a lot of ways. But at the same time, we still have to engage in that system. Otherwise, it will never be able to make big changes like that ever. Because if you abstain out of that sort of decision making and that sort of incremental movement, you're basically just saying, hey, we need big movements or we're not moving at all. But that's not true, because either you're making no movements by not making big movements, and that no movements thing is other people making it worse, right? Because your no movement in Trump's election isn't really no movement. It's him making things objectively worse and making it even harder to make those big movements. So that step-by-step process, I think, is important.
Yeah, I mean, I think with some of these programs and some of these processes, once you dip somebody's toe in, you hear about all these anti-socialist Southerners and all these kinds of things, and then they're talking about dismantling the Affordable Care Act, and they're like, whoa, is this going to kill my, expanded Medicare? And it's like, yeah, it will kill that. And they're like, well, we don't want that to go away. And it's like, well, that's like the whole thing, man.
Right.
So I feel like in some ways you get people's toe in the water and they start to benefit from these programs, and then they go, wait, I don't like socialism, but I do want all of these programs.
I do want to benefit from it, though.
Yeah. So, I have an example of that very close to home, where my dad, who was not an Obama supporter, of course, was a massive Trump supporter even, benefited from heart surgery that he received that he desperately needed after the Affordable Care Act and getting health insurance for the first time in like 40 years. That guy he's a minister. He carried no health insurance whatsoever. And then Obama saved his life, and then he voted for Trump because, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But I think, to your point, Jared, I think, if you examine any of these social programs for any length of time, you're going to see things you don't like. It's not moving fast enough. We're not helping enough. We're not doing enough. Why don't we have more money? And these are the same questions that Biden had when he gets in office. These are the same questions that any progressive has, even a moderate progressive, when they're thinking about how can we do more? How can we lessen even more harm? How can we help more people? If you're looking at it from that standpoint, there's always going to be lack in every area. But like you said, it's like, well, if you're not going to at least commit to trying to make these incremental changes that we have the ability to try and make while we can, with the time that we're given and the small sphere of influence we have, if you're not working towards that at least, then you're working against it, basically. Like you said, if you're just standing still in protest because Bernie's not the president, then you're not helping anyone.
Yeah, and multiple people online have made the point, of course, as progressives, that nobody asks the question, how do you pay for this when it's, the newest fighter jet or, a couple $100 billion more dollars into the defense budget. Nobody asks.
Our troops on the ground somewhere.
How are you paying for that? Or war. How are you paying for that?
Yeah.
It never comes out of anybody's mouth for whatever reason, even though we spend more than anybody by a lot.
Anybody by a whole lot.
The next five, countries combined. Mm-hmm. And we're not really actively at war with anybody right now. And we have enough weaponry to, not just win those wars, but blow everyone else off the planet. Like, maybe it's time we get people off the streets. Maybe it's time we get some folks some food.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Just off the top. Off the top of that military budget and move it around. Because I feel like it's weird because we have so much bureaucracy and like monetary assignment to human like individual lives. There's a lot of monetary assignment there for people that's just outside of that they don't see, I guess, the same way as they do like guns for some reason. Where it's like, oh no, the government has money for guns, but for people,
yeah,
come on. Like it's such a weird take to me. I guess I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's just because people are so bought into the whole, like big pharma thing. Like everybody just loves how our medical system works right now. Maybe that's what it is. I just can't tell why people feel that way about it. Why there is an amount of money that is too much to spend on making sure that there are as many people alive and well as possible, right?
Well, because they don't care.
If you die.
I guess. Yeah.
That's their
If
motto,
you die.
man. That's their underground motto, according to Steve. And I'm starting to think it's definitely true.
Yeah, when you look at it that way, everything about it makes sense. When they really just don't care if you die. They don't care if anybody other than them and their loved ones die. And they want to hoard their resources, whatever that is, whether it's the, whites only pool or, like any number of things.
Absolutely.
They're rooting tooting cowboy shooting six shooters.
Yeah. Keep their stuff, whatever that means. And they don't
their
care.
Trust funds, their community is all white. There's just whatever it is that they consider, as far as their lives go, their standard of living.
Yep.
As long as that's maintained, that status quo is maintained, it really does not matter.
So many policies and so many people that you've listened to talk about the pandemic have even said, basically, we don't care if you die. Like, get out there and spread this thing around so we can be done with this. Have it kill
herd
all the
immunity.
people it's
We don't care.
Kill.
Yeah.
What was it? Turd mentality? Was it Trump that said that? Turd mentality?
Turd mentality. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Turd mentality.
I would like to think that incremental change is not the only way to go. I would like to think that sweeping change is something that could be done. Ultimately,
absolutely.
Like the New Deal back in the FDR's day, I mean, that saved the country. It set off all kinds of social programs that we still use to this day, that have made being old a lot easier, as an example. Social Security and socialized medicine for old people. Just the kind of things that make retirement a thing. Those retirement should still be a thing. People shouldn't have to work past a certain age if they don't want to. And our society should support them for having put the best 40 years of their life into our economy and our society.
Yeah, I agree. And I think
and the way that we get there
like
too.
You said, the New Deal. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the way that you end up getting there, at least right now, because of the political climate, is take steps. We can't not take steps. So incremental change, slow stuff, especially for big problems, is really annoying. I agree, but it's important, and we still have to take those steps, even if it's begrudgingly, even if it's not as good as long a step as it could be. Still have to take those steps. Yeah.
I get the frustration. There's certainly good examples, like you said, Andrew, of where we can make sweeping change quick. I mean, I think about even last year, the first round of stimulus checks. Now, obviously, that didn't keep up. But I remember when initially that was coming around, there wasn't a lot of arguments over how much is it going to be, who's going to get it. It was like, no, like now. We need it out yesterday. I mean, even Trump, as terrible as he was tweeting, we need this out like yesterday. Everyone agreed. We needed this now. So let's get this done now. And it's like, nothing has changed. Here we are in February. Nothing has changed. We need this now too.
Worse.
But other than it's gotten worse. And now we have all these variants, and vaccine rollout is way slower than anyone anticipated it would be. And
people have been out of work for a year, and businesses have been closed on and off for
shuttered
a year.
And closed. It's just, and so it's like, why can't we make these why can't we take the quick action now? Like, it's worse than it was when you did it the first round, the second round. So it is frustrating.
Amy Coney Island on the Supreme Court.
Had plenty of time for that.
Very short order.
Yeah.
So There are ways to get things done in short order, not things that Republicans disagree with for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
They had less control than we do. And they still were able to do all the things that they want to do. I don't understand that. I don't get
unilaterally.
I just,
I don't get it either.
It's really just got to be the Senate. It's a function of the Senate and Mitch McConnell. You know, we look forward to 2022 already and some of the races there. Couple Republicans are giving up their seats. The guy in Pennsylvania.
Retiring.
The guy in Alabama.
That's a big one.
Yep.
Dude.
Yeah. So
snatch those up. Those up.
Yeah, maybe. We're still not going to get close to filibuster level, you know? It's just not.
That's true.
Right. Numbers don't work unless you get DC as a state and Puerto Rico as a state, and you know.
Also, those things happen too, by the way.
But for me, it's that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But for me, it's encouraging that so many young people are getting involved even more. I mean, we saw a lot of it during the Obama administration, and we saw a lot of people, like you said, come out that obviously weren't Biden supporters, was not their first choice, but came out in force this time because we knew what was at stake. I think that same mentality can exist and can continue into 2022. I know I personally contributed, campaigned, did more. I phone banked for the first time in my life, which I'm not super comfortable with because I kind of have social anxiety. And but there was even for me, who's pretty lazy, it got to a point where things need to be done, or else this guy's going to get elected again. And I think that same energy can apply in 2022. So. Incremental change sucks, but it's change.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all agree that something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
I learned the name Mike Crapo recently. That's a senator, apparently. That's funny to me.
Mike Crapo.
That is funny. I see why he won.
He's a Republican out of somewhere that, I don't know.
Idaho.
Is it?
It's Idaho, yeah.
Oh. All right. Yeah, he's up for election again in 22. I don't know, Idaho. There's so much geographically of the United States that runs red. They're single issue voters, and they do not care that it makes their life worse, as long as they think that they're fighting against abortion. As long as they think that it makes a difference about whether or not they get to keep all their guns.
Yeah.
As long as they think Jesus wants them to vote this way.
That's the thing. I know it comes up a lot on this show, and I bet there are people that watch the show that think we literally just hate religion, and it's only because we do. But also, it is remarkable. I'm sorry, I don't speak for everyone on this show. It is remarkable to me, though, that so much of that has impacted who we are as a nation to this day. So many of those single issue voters are rooted in religion.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that they vote for, two people not being able to get married because they're dudes, a woman not being able to decide what she wants to do with her body. All of these things are not rooted in any other social or moral construct other than the religion.
Just religious.
Their religion.
And they find other arguments. They find other arguments to defend those, but at the same, but they're all, like once you dismantle those arguments, when talking to them, they always fall back on that same sort of premise. And and it comes to it's one of those things where it's like the information that you're disseminating is not because, and the information you're looking for to bolster that information that you feel like is correct is not because you want to know what's right. It's because you already know what you think is right, and you want to you basically confirmation bias your way into determining how that's right.
Well, it's what Andrew said, which is it's like if you don't really care that this, like my parents, for example, if they were voting for a candidate that was essentially just voting straight up against their own interests, but he was anti-abortion in their mind, because Jesus is going to be proud of them for that, it's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, even if you were to explain to them all the ways that this actually hurts them and does not help them, does not benefit them or their community or the people that they love or claim to love, it hurts everyone. They're like, yeah, but at the end of the day, I have to stand before Jesus and account for all the decisions I made. and this is going to be a big one. I can tell. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like faith over country, faith over people,
Jesus
faith
Christ,
over country, faith over
yeah,
everything else, and it seems dangerous to me.
It's extremely dangerous. It's cost a lot of lives. It's going to continue to do so until we get past it, until we evolve past that. I was asking someone recently just their opinion. I was like, do you think man will ever evolve past religion? Because, I mean, you know, it's only been around for a relative short amount of time when you think of how long the Earth's been around. So I'm like, do you think man will ever evolve past it? Like, will someone 1,000 years from now be sitting around being like, dude, do you remember when people actually believed literally any religion at all? Like, insert any religion. And it's just like, no, man, I cannot believe people believe that. Because we can look back at certain things like, you know, the Greek gods or something. Yeah, and be like, oh, can you believe they actually thought that? And it's just like, do you believe can you believe you actually believe that? Yeah.
I mean, I've listened to what you believe.
Have you heard what you believe?
So yes, I can believe that they believe that.
So not to bash on religion, but I'm just saying that's a component. So a lot of these single issue voters.
Or I mean, if you look at the most recent Pope, Francis, or any of the number of possible leaders of the religious movement, I really feel like it could just move the other way. You can be religious and then also care about humans.
Well, because the
Pope that's the story.
The Pope said something about pro-gay marriage, right?
So, I mean, you don't have to. That's the story. You really have to distort the story to come away with the kind of hate that people do.
Right.
If you just read the story and you listen to what the story says, it says to love your fellow man. It says to turn the other cheek. It says to not
love
have
your enemy.
An arsenal in your garage, you freaking weirdo.
That part's implied. That part
says not to. It says not to single issue vote about abortion and think about the good to humanity.
Yeah,
that's
it says
specifically
abortion
what it says.
Isn't murder in the book of Jeremiah. I'm pretty sure
somewhere in there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like at some point maybe we'll get leaders of the religions who push down the idea that the New Testament isn't about hate. And that feels like such an easy idea to progress toward if, you read it.
Yeah.
But people are always going to, do what they're doing now, which is distort it, use it so that they can make it mean what they need it to mean so it supports their agenda.
Which a lot of times money ends up in a lot of ways. Not to dive into our megachurches episode.
Right. Yeah, if you want more on that, check out our megachurches episode where we dive deep into that bullshit. But yeah.
All right. Well, incrementalism. Did we I give it
oof.
I think 2 for me. Hard. I might go 3
figs. Out of 5
somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
It's always mediocre, centrist, and disappointing, I guess.
Right.
It's still it like meets my expectations. So
exactly. Yeah.
In the very satisfied or unsatisfied, it gets 3 out of 5 figs.
Right. I'll give it 3 out of 5 too because of just the inevitability of it. That's the other thing too. It's like it's hard to even really give it a fig rating because, I mean, it's
just kind of the way it is.
And
rejecting it
the only way anything's going to get done. And
rejecting it from either perspective, I think, is silly. I think you should take part in the political system you're a part of in order to change it.
Yeah, I'll go halfway. 2.5, 2.5 figs. Can I have 0.5 figs?
Yeah, right. What's a half fig look like?
Centrist, mediocre number of figs.
It sure is. It's in the spirit of incrementalism. I will give it 2.5 figs.
2.5 figs. Yeah.
And not a penny more. $30. Lego set. Sorry.
Would also like to give a quick apology to AOC.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
She is not going to be able to be with us tonight. She is not a fan of incrementalism at all.
No.
Prefers big sweeping change, which I get.
Yeah,
I get. I do too. We all wish that, but
just didn't really want to hear it tonight. So didn't get to her.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Unfortunate.
Next time.
Appreciate everybody showing up. You can subscribe to us right here on YouTube, and you'll know when we go live like this. Then you can like us over on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. Additionally, we are here live 6 p.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.